You're watching SPFX. My name is Todd Palomar. Welcome to my first primitive polygon. Primitive objects are a great way to get started making a lot of different types of shapes or different types of models. Maya offers us several different types of primitive objects. I'm going to go up to the top here, and if we choose the Create drop-down menu, we have NURBS primitives, Polygon primitives, Volume primitives. The ones we want to focus on here are the polygon primitives. Polygon objects are going to be what we mainly use. There used to be a time, way back when NURBS were far more powerful than polygon objects. But now things have changed. NURBS still have their place, but polygon objects really dominate our workflow now. And that mainly is because of their flexibility. There's just so many different things that we can do with a polygon object, and nowadays NURBS can be somewhat limiting in our functionality. So polygons are great to work with, so that's what we're going to stick with here. Now in Maya, what we can do is anytime we see these dotted lines up at the top here, and you can see it's also on this menu, that allows us to tear that menu off. So I can just click on it and break it away. So I can just move this down here and keep this up. When I'm sick of it, I can just X out of it right there. We're going to leave it here, and I'm going to create just a primitive objects so that we can see what they're all about. So now I've simply created a cube, and I'm going to hit F on the keyboard, F to frame my selection. As that implies, we've got to have something selected. So we can tell it's selected because it's highlighted green. And I'll hit F, and that will immediately bring my camera up to my object. And notice how the grid is in the background there. It didn't fly the object to us, it brought the camera to the object. Okay, so now we can tumble around it here. Again, that's Alt and the left mouse button to tumble. Okay, and I can see it's definitely a cube. Okay, yay, there's my very first object. We have several other primitive type objects over here that we can also create, and I'm just going to select there my cube, and I'll just hit delete. Okay, that gets rid of it. Okay, as we've created, we have also destroyed. So now I'm also going to bring up a sphere, and now you can see that the sphere is a little bit big, so I'll just hit F and frame that selection. That's just going to bring that camera back out. Now when we create these objects, these primitive polygon objects, they're all generated with a polygon structure that is sitting inside there. And you can see how we have all these lines, or the object's wireframe. That wireframe shows us basically the different components or the different pieces that come together to form this primitive object. Those individual pieces are polygons. So right here, if we just look, and I'm going to zoom in, Alt, right mouse click, this right here, where this wireframe outlines this square is a polygon face. Okay? And we'll get into that later when we really talk about polygon objects and breaking them down. Okay? But it's important to understand right now, because if I go back over and instead of clicking on sphere, I click on the tool options box. That's that little box that's sitting out there. If I click on that instead, it brings up another window. And this window allows me to change how that sphere, how that polygon sphere is going to be created. So I'm going to delete the current one that's out there. My window is still going to stay up here. My polygon options still out here. And instead of having 20 divisions in the axis, around in the encircling axis, and in the height, let's bring these down. Let's drop these down to 8 by 8. And I can do so by, of course, grabbing those sliders or highlighting the number and just typing it in from the keyboard. We can also change the radius there as well, but I'm going to leave that just set to 1. And we'll choose Create. Okay? And now I get a much lower resolution object, where that original sphere had 20 divisions by 20 divisions. Okay, and those divisions are, you've got one going in this direction here, encircling our sphere, so that's a division line there. Okay, and then of course you have them going in this direction. Basically, latitude and longitude. Okay, notice that all of our primitive objects over here all have separate options. So let's just delete that sphere and let's create something a little bit more interesting. I could go to a torus, open that up. Okay, and I have all sorts of different options here. Section, radius, twist, again, those axis divisions. Okay, and we can create that object and have that primitive out there as well. Now, by default, when you first run Maya, you've probably already run into this, that interactive creation is turned on. Okay, I typically turn it off, as you can already tell. But if that's turned on, and let's just create something different, I'll click on a pyramid, it will not automatically create the primitive object. Instead, it gives us the option to click and drag anywhere in our world. So I'll just click out over here, I'll just click, drag, and that completes the object. Now if you're creating something that you can't just click and drag like a cube, okay, it'll give us two options. So first, I can click and I'm dragging out the base, and then I click and drag again in order to get its height. Okay, and so now I have not a perfect cube, it's actually a little bit larger in one axis than another. Okay, so that's an interactive way for creating primitive objects. And here we can see we have a pipe. And this one actually has three, and I'm going to tumble around before I click the third time, to where we get the radius of the pipe first, then its height, and then its actual thickness. Okay, and I'm just left clicking to do all of this, and we can left click and hold that left mouse button down and drag in order to interactively update that object. Okay, so again, we can left click, drag, left click again if there are other options in order to, again, adjust the shape of that object. When all your options are done, the object will be completed, and you'll see it go back to the default highlight color, indicating that the object is selected. I'm going to select all those and just delete them, just to kind of clear our space there. Okay, and let's create, let's turn off interactive creation. And I'll just click cube. Now the major difference here is now I don't have to interactively draw this out in my grid. It'll automatically get created. It will be a perfect square, and it will be placed in the center of my world. I prefer this. I'd like to start with zeros, and you can see all these zeros over here in the channel box. Okay. Now the problem with this, though, is that if I want to now create a sphere, there it is. My cube, okay, is still there. It's just sitting inside of my sphere, and you can see there it is right there, okay, as I'm way inside there. Okay, and that's a little confusing to look at, but we'll delete that sphere. There's my cube. Okay, and I can create a plane, a cone, and you'll see that all of these objects are basically going to layer on top of each other there. Okay, so if I just want to select all of these and delete them, I'm going to left click and just drag, and that's my select tool there by default, and hit delete, and that'll get rid of them. That takes care of our first primitive polygon. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.